Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Another weekend, another new stadium for me. Somehow I've never been to Loftus Park before. I don't know how. It's one of those stadiums that, just a London stadium that you would imagine would crop up from time to time in fixtures. No idea why, I just haven't been there. It's a very cool old school stadium if you haven't been there. Little bit of an old White Hart Lane vibe, slightly, not too much, but just a little wave of nostalgia as I walked through the doors. Actually got quite lucky in terms of after the game, I was talking to some of the people around the club and was able to go down and stand on the pitch, and just little moments like that just make me appreciate, I think, that little bit more, like how just mad it must be to be a player and like looking up at the stands with thousands of people up there. It's just fair play to people that do that. Anyway, straight off, before we get into the friendly and all the little bits and pieces, Loftus Bergvall, his injury, which we've got some positive news on, so that's good. Probably should start with Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, because that seems to be the next terms of incoming, outgoing, whatever you want to call it. Looks like, at this moment in time, he is heading off to Marseille, which I think is a little bit of a surprise for some people that know him. I think there was a sense that he wanted a Champions League club for next season. Marseille, I think, finished 8th, I think they did, in Ligue 1. But, you know, it sounds like maybe he's had a chat with De Zerbi and decided that's his next move. So, yeah, probably not where I would have seen him heading to. But, hey, you know, it must feel like it's an exciting project there for him to get involved with. So, yeah, looks like at this point is heading there. From what I understand, the latest form it is taking, whether this shifts again, but the latest form it is taking is a loan with an obligation to buy, not an option, an obligation to buy, which could in all be worth about 20 million euros, which is just under 17 million pounds, about 16.8 million pounds for Spurs. So some people, when I put that out earlier, I reported that this morning, some people kind of wondered how that really works in terms of Hojbjerg's in his last 11 months of his contract now, which in one sense, I actually don't think that's a bad fee for someone with 11 months left. I know you could point to someone like Harry Kane, but this is different. We know what kind of Harry Kane guarantees you certain something. I think Hojbjerg is a good player. I think he'll do very well there, but there's a slight difference. And also, yeah, essentially that's the best way to describe it. But some people have wondered, well, with 11 months left in his contract, why? How does that work? How's it a loan? You know, how does, why do Marseille just not go, no, we'll have it on loan, no obligation, and we'll just take him for free in a year's time or 11 months' time? It's kind of not what this is. This is something that, if it ends up being what it currently is, a loan with an obligation to buy, it's a sale in all but name. It is. It's just a way of structuring the finances of it, the payments, in a way, I suppose, that Marseille technically can put it on next year's financial books if they want. It gives them more time to raise any money they're required to do the sale. And for Spurs, it's not really any different, because I think sometimes we look at these transfers and transfer fees in very linear ways. We see it as, like, I don't know, £20 million or 20 million euros is in this case, which is all in that's including add-ons. And we see it as, oh, there you go, £20 million in the bank or whatever. And it doesn't really work like that, because, as you probably well know, most clubs work in instalments. That's what they do. And if you're doing a loan with an obligation, let's say, for instance, if there is a loan fee, that's technically your first instalment of your transfer. It's the same kind of, it's just giving it a different name, swapping out when it officially gets registered, I guess, for the buying club as a deal. It's kind of same end goal, different name, probably roughly the same structure, I'd imagine. I don't know. But either way, it's a sale. There's guaranteed money there that you can say it is coming into the coffers, and you can kind of, I guess, in a way, leverage against that when you're looking to buy other people. Kind of similar, I guess, to what they did with Eric Dyer. You know, Eric Dyer went to Bayern, and Bayern ended up paying a fee. It was kind of like the loan fee was the buying him fee. It was just the way round that they decided they were going to do it. So, yeah. So, Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg heading off. 4 years at the club. 2020 he was signed. Played 184 times. Scored I've written it down here. 10 goals, 16 assists. He scored as well, didn't he, against Marseille? That kind of late dramatic goal as well. They clearly haven't taken that to heart against him, unless they're just buying him to abuse him and beat him in a corner, I don't know, or put him in a cupboard for however long he signs for. But there's kind of, there's different ways people see Hojbjerg. Personally, I've always felt he's a guy that really kind of put in a shift for Spurs. He was a good player for Spurs for years. Was he amazing? Was he incredible? No. But was he a reliable kind of general of sorts in that midfield? Yes. Were there times that he could be a little bit frustrating? Yes. But I think last season proved, weirdly, more than any of the previous ones to me, which is strange when you think about it because he started so relatively few times. But actually last season, I think you saw what he could bring to the team whenever he was brought off the bench. He doesn't fit the Postecoglou system. That's why he started so few times, and that's why he's heading off. But I still felt like there were so many games when he came on and played quite an important role in ensuring that they got the 3 points. So yeah, I've got no kind of real negatives about his time at Spurs. I think he came in. He didn't come in for that much money. Let's not forget, it was about, can't remember him back now. Was it 12, 15 million plus Kyle Walker-Peters? Something like that. Because again, he was in the last year of his contract there. And I think he's been a decent servant for Tottenham Hotspur. And I think he'll be kept in well regard in the future as well. And just on a personal level, just a pretty good guy to us in the media as well. He didn't always do lots of interviews, but when he did, he was quite good. But he was just, I know it's a silly little thing, but just like when we're in some far-flung places and you're absolutely knackered and the players will walk by, someone will just kind of not want to engage at all. Maybe either they don't like you, but they may also be fearful that you're going to try and instigate an interview or something like that. And some of them will always make a point of just, if it's just saying hello or asking how you are and things like that. And Hojbjerg was one of that group. He would always do that. He was just a decent guy. And I know, that doesn't make a footballer. It doesn't make any of this sort of stuff. But it just, you're a decent guy. I think it deserves being said about someone. So yeah, it's the other thing you've got to take on from this. I kind of feel like we're going to have a little. This maybe is going to be a little knock-on effect now, and hopefully, fingers crossed, kind of starts a little merry-go-round of something happening with incomings, because I was looking over it all. It's not just the guarantee of whatever it will be, 12, 13 million pounds coming through the door eventually, not including the potential add-ons. But you're also getting another high earner off the wage bill. Because I think, again, we don't know exactly what people's salaries are. There's a lot of kind of guesswork involved with them. But if you are to believe reports, then Hojbjerg was in the 100,000 plus category. That's reports. Again, I don't know really talking about what people get paid. It's not a great way to go about it. But what I'm trying to say is he's in that bracket of the higher group of earners. That seems to be the sense of things. So, kind of if you look at what they've cleared off that wage board now, or wages, the wage bill, whatever you want to call it, you've got Hojbjerg. He's now coming off there. You've got Tanguy Ndombele's come off there. We know he was one of the best paid at the club. Eric Dyer would have been very reasonably paid. Even Perisic, very reasonably paid. Ryan Sessegnon, probably decently paid as well, because they were trying to compete with so many other clubs at the time for his signature. And then you've got Tanganga and Roden, who maybe are going to be lower down that scale, but still it all adds up. And you also look at the fact that there's some fees that have come in there for some of those players. Hojbjerg, Roden, Tanganga, sorry, not Tanganga, Dyer. So maybe, I was trying to work it out, roughly maybe 33, 34 million maybe, for those in potential figures and stuff like that as well. Technically, I haven't even thought, and Troy Parrott as well. That continues to go up as well. So you could argue that probably out of that, obviously taking Roden off of it because he was kind of part of this deal unofficially, but the Archie Gray deal's kind of been paid off, if you're going to look at it in that respect from this way. It's always difficult to look at it like that because it's instalments, things like that, and bits and pieces. But yeah, I mean, and there's other money that, like Tanguy Ndombele, you'd imagine he'd have been paid off to a degree because it was a bit different with him. He had a year left of his contract, so in a mutual agreement, you would assume that he's been paid off a certain amount of that final year. But I still think you're kind of roughly back at square one in terms of your budget with Archie Gray having come in. Maybe Werner, potentially a loan fee you would think in there as well. But roughly, you've got to be around that. And that kind of, then you can crack on. And you know you've got that space in it. That wage bill of the squad must have come flying down. So then it feels like there's this big amount of room to manoeuvre within now. So this is why I kind of feel like something's going to start kind of kicking into gear now. They're going to start advancing. And look, you could quite rightly say, but why haven't they advanced already? And trust me, as a journalist, I've been wondering that myself and wanting these deals to come over the line. I know there's certain aspects of the tournaments and players then go on holiday and things like that as well. I think there's also a degree of selling clubs wanting to get their house in order first and who they're bringing in, things like that. But ultimately, I just got this feeling that things are going to start happening, which is always worrying when you're sitting down to do one of these videos. But I had to do it now because it's heading off, starting my journey to Japan tomorrow. So this is was my last chance this evening, really, of a bit of spare time where I could do it. So I'm taking the risk. It's fine. It wouldn't be the first time I could probably, while even hitting publish on this, something will come out. Even when I say that, it pretty much encourages something to happen. But that's fine. That's fine. I'd be delighted, to be honest. I'm not worried because I don't think you can date. This video wouldn't date. I don't think it would be more that there would need to be an accompaniment to it. But yeah. So Hojbjerg. Let's see if that now kind of kickstarts a few little bits and pieces into action. Like I say, just feels like that room to manoeuvre is growing and growing and growing. Because that's some big earners off the wage bill. I mean, that's not even including Hugo Lloris leaving at the start of the year. They've shifted so much, and some of those kind of the younger signings that have come in, I'd be surprised if they're not in a very decent way. There's a little stat coming up there. What's this about? Oh, that's an interesting one. 11 of their 25-man squad that finished the 22-23 season before Postecoglou come in have been sold or released. Yeah, well, it shows you, doesn't it? While we're frustrated about not seeing maybe more incoming transfers thus far, although they've put some bits in place, and I have no doubt that there's more to come. Postecoglou said a couple more. I think he was meaning collectively a couple, not literally the number two. Couple, but they have been clearing the decks. I think they've washed away. That seems a weird way of putting it, but they have done more for Postecoglou than maybe they have for other managers in terms of clearing the decks for them, with getting players that they didn't want at the club out the door. Like I say, taking a hit on some of those players like Tanguy just to get them out the door. And players like Cess and Tanganga not taking the extra year option on them when maybe they could have done that and got a little bit of extra money in. That respect, they've done stuff. Now, obviously, they've got to back him in the other respect, which is bringing the players through the door. But, we'll see with that. So, a little bit about yesterday's match, which I enjoyed. Obviously, it wasn't the goal fest that the Hearts game was, but, as I said, enjoyed going to Loftus Park. Yeah, you could see, we're going to talk about it a little bit, you could see there was some tired legs out there. They'd had a really tough week of training, and I think you could see that out there. And this is what these friendlies are for Postecoglou. They're like an extended training session for him as he continues to kind of drill his views and philosophy and ideas and imprint them into their very being, these Tottenham players. He wants them, as I always use the words, instinct instead of instruction. That's what he wants for them to do. So there you go. All US political stuff breaking as I'm doing this. This is no it's nothing to do with football. This is very interesting. There you go. Biden dropping out of the race. But back to football. We're not here. This isn't me talking about the American political system at all. So the training session, yes, they've worked them really hard over the past week or so. Obviously, they had the game against Cambridge behind closed doors on the Saturday. Then they had the Hearts game in midweek, the travelling around that, and now the QPR game. And I think in and amongst that, there's been a lot of like double session work and really pushing them hard to try and get them to where they want them to be. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they got back from Hearts and landed from Edinburgh. I think it's like 1-2 in the morning. So it was another kind of a late night. And obviously then you're going straight into a training session. You probably stay at the lodge, I'd imagine, and then go straight into a training session on the Thursday. So yeah, but in a weird way, so far it feels like pre-season's been smoother than last year. I mean, obviously there's more to come, and some of this stuff happened later last summer. But last summer we had opponents cancelling. Roma didn't end up being the opponents they were meant to be for Spurs. We had the postponed game in Bangkok that didn't happen because of the rain. We had the whole Harry Kane saga, and German journalists holding up shirts and things like that. So everything kind of feels almost normal at the moment, which touch wood, means something's going to happen. But yeah, so far 3 games, 14 goals. They conceded 3, yes, but obviously with a very makeshift defence. And yeah, I just felt in this latest one that there felt like some knackered legs out there. Again, 2 starting 11s in each half, sharing out the minutes. I know some people have kind of got a little bit hung up on the fact that, like Archie Gray, let's say, has been playing at centre-back. It's just to get the minutes in the leg. That's all it is. It's to make sure that he is the fittest possible position for the season starting. And I take it in a good way. He's going to play lots of minutes. He's a £40 million signing. I've seen some people trying to claim that he's not going to be. It's... He will. He will. They love him. They absolutely love him. I've said that in the last video, so we don't need to go into that really. But yeah, 2 very different teams, 2 different halves. It was a more blended teams, I would say, than we got against Hearts. Hearts very much felt like a much younger second half team, whereas this felt like he sprinkled a few more of the starters into the second half team, or potential starters. It wasn't a game full of loads of quality, but it had some nice moments, and both goals were really nice, had different elements to them that were really nice. I mean, the first is just fabulous. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. Yves Bissouma going on one of the dribbles that we know he can do, beating his man, playing it to Kulusevski, 1-2, another 1-2 with Kulusevski, as after Maddison did on Wednesday night. And yeah, Bissouma just kind of shimmies around the goalkeeper and puts it over the line. Beautiful. And then the second one, Maddison playing the ball into Mikey Moore. I think Manassoneman does a little step over or a flick or something during it, and Mikey Moore runs onto it. So much awareness to hit a right outside of the right foot cross, low across the 6-yard box, and Dane Scarlett showing lots of determination to touch it home at the other end. Yeah, stats if you want them. 63% of the possession for Spurs, 429 passes to QPR's 206, which is less passes than they managed against Hearts. Spurs, I think they were like 604, something like that. They managed fewer shots at goal than QPR. They had 10 to their 14, albeit they had 6 on target and QPR only had 3. QPR definitely had chances. Absolutely, they did. But let's be honest, again, it was the same backline that started the game of 3 young midfielders in the centre-back position. 2 in the centre-back positions, Archie Gray and Oliver Skipp, Jamie Donnelly as the left-back, and Pedro Porro, the only player really playing in this position. You're going to get chances. And they had a big striker up front as well who was, trying to give them as much trouble as he really could. And yeah, they had to deal with a lot of set pieces. 16 corners alone QPR had that were throwing into or launching into the box as well. But they still came away with a clean sheet. So you've got to give it to them. They did. I watched before the game. I was really fascinated by a lot of the warm-up stuff on Saturday. I got up to my seat a little bit earlier. And just really to see like what influence the new coaches had. Nick Montgomery, Sergio Raimondo, doing their kind of bits and pieces as well with the squad. And you can always just learn little things. And the defence were really working as a tight unit with Matty Wells. And he did a drill that I haven't seen them do before. I've seen them throw up the ball, and one of them's got to head it, and they're kind of almost got to be like they're attached by rope and staying in this exact line, for their offside traps and things like that. But what he was doing was he was running at the fullbacks as if he was a winger, and then he would kind of try and ping the ball in, and either the fullback blocked it or the ball would go up in the air, and all four of them had to remain in an exact line to deal with it. And it was it was really interesting little kind of exercise to watch them do. It paid dividends. They kept a clean sheet, indebted to a couple of fantastic saves in either half. Obviously, different back four in the second half, but yeah, Postecoglou was reasonably happy with it. I wouldn't say he was ecstatic with it, but he just kind of acknowledged what had gone on in the week. His quotes were, he didn't do a press conference. He did just his club stuff after the game, but he said it was okay. They've had a hard week training and game travel, so I felt for the boys really. We knew we'd be a little bit leggy today. I still thought we played some good stuff. Probably weren't as clinical in front of goal as we were in midweek. That was probably because, like I said, we've had a hard week. We created some good chances, but overall, not too bad. And again, everyone got through it, so that's the main thing. And he was asked, what's the aim of these games? And he said, just to keep progressing our game, keep improving, and trying to implement our principles. To be fair to the boys, they've come back in good condition, and it's more about pushing on from last year and the foundation that we've created, hopefully, that springboards us to something better. So, he's just now, this is the process. Early on especially, it's about getting them fitter and sharper, regardless of what position they're in, and just trying to get the principles of play as drilled into them as possible. And the ones who have already been there, it's like I said before, Tottenham 2.0, it's getting the next stage into them as well. And he always said this, that in the second year, he can start to really develop the tactical side of things. The first year for the players is more about drilling the philosophy into them as well. The next couple of weeks he's going to get more players back. He's going to have players in their normal positions, and you're going to start to see a regular 11 maybe get like an hour, 75 minutes or something, as he's trying to get them more game time, and the odd player given a little bit longer to up their minutes and their fitness in case they suddenly have to come in as well. And if they think it's tough now, just wait for the heat and humidity of Asia. I was looking at it, it looks like it's going to be 35 degrees in Japan, about 30, 31 in South Korea, with a lot of rain. Remember that from last time. It is the monsoon season. Doesn't look like there's going to be much rain, if any, in Japan, but certainly in Seoul, it's going to have a fair bit of rain. I actually bought an umbrella today to take with me, because last time I took a very little mini umbrella that fitted in my bag, which was very helpful in that respect. Held it up in the monsoon weather, and it essentially was destroyed within the seconds, or would just not cover me and I'd get wet anyway. It's crazy. Honestly, it's not like, we have our British rain, South Korean weather at this time of year, as it was in Thailand last year as well. It's just crazy. It's just like stepping into a waterfall. It's mad. So what else about the game? Loftus Bergvall. We've got to talk about Loftus Bergvall. There was a nice little moment after the game. Loftus Bergvall obviously come off after about 25, 26 minutes. And after the game, all the players that had come off in the first half had all showered and changed, and they came onto the pitch to essentially shake hands with the opposition and also go over to the Spurs fans and applaud them, say thank you and all that for their support. And Bergvall was walking around, not too badly, a little tiny bit gingerly, but not too badly. And Postecoglou saw him, and he was clearly having this little chat with him. And he just did this very paternal thing with him of kind of putting his hand on one shoulder and then just doing this thing. It wasn't like a slap, it was like a pat, if anything, like that a couple of times on his face as he's talking to him. And it was just funny. And even as he went away, like Bergvall almost kind of put his hand out, oh, you. It was like a really funny little reaction, because we know what Postecoglou is like. He's not that kind of guy. But he does seem to have struck up a little relationship with Bergvall, only kind of going on the bits and pieces we've seen. And obviously we saw when he signed Loftus Bergvall, that was that kind of, they just seemed to click, didn't they? Went in and saw him in the medical, and I think he was a little bit taken aback, Postecoglou, of how kind of confident, outgoing, and just quite a fun character that Bergvall is. Having spoken to him, he is exactly like that. What you saw in that video is him. He's a very nice, confident guy. And we also saw when he came for pre-season training, you saw him in the car park with Postecoglou having a chat as well. And when I asked him, I wrote down the quotes from the interview I did with him in May, and he said about Postecoglou, we had a really good conversation. This was that first one back when he was signing. And he said, he's a really honest and kind man. We talked and he was really happy, and me too, of course. It was really great. Yeah, he kind of really likes him. And that little scene on the pitch after just kind of was such a kind of the polar opposite of the way he came off, because he looked crestfallen. He had his shirt kind of between his teeth, the neck of his shirt as he walked off. He looked absolutely gutted. And, it's because he was playing so well. He was having an absolute blinder, to be honest. He was probably, I have to do kind of first half ratings in these friendlies because I know they're all going to change for the second half. And probably player of the match at that point. He was that good. He was dominating everything. But yeah, he looked in much better spirits after the game. Was chatting away to Sonny again. Looks like he's got this nice little bond with Sonny. You might remember Sonny sent him a text message after he signed, which went down very well. And they seem to have had this little bit of a bond that's hopefully growing. And he went over Bergvall as well to go and speak to Marty Cifuentes, the QPR boss, who is Spanish, but he worked in Sweden for about 18 months. He was at Hammarby. So maybe that's the link. Maybe they kind of remember each other from then or something. But Bergvall was good. I mean, Bergvall is the perfect Postecoglou player in that he fits the mould that's required to be one of his midfielders. He's got like courage, ability, high fitness levels, really clever football brain, and the desire to just always push forward with the ball. He doesn't want to go sideways with it. He doesn't want to turn and look back. He always wants to progress the play up the pitch, and that is the Postecoglou way. So yeah, it was just a shame that it looked like he was feeling some kind of soreness. We couldn't work out exactly what it was. We were kind of speculating maybe at one point he was holding his groin. We don't know. Maybe it's muscular. Again, it's all kind of guesswork. I'm sure we'll. I can ask when I'm on the tour and probably get a little bit more information about it. But what I do know, thankfully, is it was told today that it looks like he's fine. And I mean, essentially, Postecoglou said this anyway, so I'm not breaking incredible news here. But I think he just needs 2 or 3 days to kind of rest up and rest whatever the issue is. Maybe, I mean, in a good way, the travelling to Japan, you're kind of losing essentially a day with the time zone difference as well. So maybe that's one of the days out of there. You've had a recovery day today as well. So maybe he doesn't miss any sessions out in Tokyo, or maybe he misses 1 or 2 and that's it. And hopefully, but from what I understand, it's certainly nothing to be concerned about. I know it's Tottenham. I know those words sound a little bit weird when you're talking about any player that has an injury at Tottenham. But I was just gutted that we were kind of robbed of seeing him for a full half, because I know it was only a pre-season friendly, but it just showed me 2 quite important things about Lucas Bergvall. One was that he'd learned the lessons I really felt of that first 10 minutes at Hearts. You might remember me saying in the last video, first 10 minutes, he was a little bit kind of hesitant in his play, held onto the ball a little bit too long and got caught in possession. But from then on was really good. And I kind of felt like he went straight into this ground, hitting the ground running. His passing was crisp, it was fast, it was clever, there was no pausing or hesitation. And he was just, I'm trying to remember if he was caught in possession at all. He might have been, but he just recycled and used the ball really well. And secondly, what I thought was really interesting, the senior players trust him. And that's not always the case. Sometimes they won't pass to younger players. But clearly, they've seen that even in the tightest of spots, they can give the ball to Lucas Bergvall. And on the whole, 9 times out of 10, he's going to do, maybe even more than that, 95 times out of 100, he's going to do exactly what you want him to do with that, and he's going to help them out. I thought it was quite interesting as well. Before, they did a little pre-match huddle, as they always do, even in friendlies. And once that kind of broke away, Yves Bissouma went over to Loftus Bergvall, kind of made a beeline for it, and did this kind of had this little chat for him about 30 seconds or so before the whistle went, and he just seemed to be saying kind of this, kind of, which I presumed, I was taking it as essentially, you want to go forward, I'll cover you. If I'm going to go forward, you can cover me. Essentially, I think that's what it was. I mean, I would imagine that's what that is, unless he was just randomly doing weird gestures. And that's exactly what happened in the game. It was exactly like that. He covered so much ground, Bergvall. There were times when he was bursting through as like a number 10. There were times when he went out wide. There were times when Bissouma went up the pitch and he came back quite a lot, actually, and collected the ball off the defenders. Again, they were absolutely happy to give that to him in any kind of tough spot, and he would just either pirouette away or find a little clever pass that he'd already had in the radar, ready to do. And we also, those 26 minutes gave us a little glimpse maybe of the future, because we had Loftus Bergvall on the pitch, Archie Gray, and the returning Pat Matassar, who was back from injury. I know Gray was technically in central defence, but you can't help but wonder, is that going to be a midfield trio of the future for Spurs? You know, they're all very gifted young footballers. They can play anywhere across the pitch, all of them. And they've got this tactical intelligence just in abundance, really. They're brilliant young players. I mean, it's mad that Bergvall and Gray are 18. Pat Matassar's the old man of the group. He's 21. I think he turns 22 maybe September, potentially. Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked, even at that age, if we see Postecoglou use them as a midfield three at some point this season. It may be that it comes in a cup game, it may be that it comes in like Europa League or something, but I just wonder whether he'll be tempted to see how that works. And the beauty of it all is all three of them technically can play as the six. They've all done it at different points. When I went out to see Bergvall play for Djurgården against Brommapojkarna, he, or BP, as people have told me I can call them if I want to shorten it, but I just love the way it sounds, Brommapojkarna. Bergvall at times was in a six role. He wasn't technically designated as the guy that was going to sit in the midfield, but he was able to do it. And as I said, against QPR, he was doing it as well. So we know Gray can play there, and we know Sarr can play there as well. He's that versatile. So that's the Postecoglou dream, isn't it? As he always says when we try to pigeonhole him into sixes and eights, all this sort of stuff. And he's like, no, I want to get away from that. That three does that, because all of them can play every single role, be a 6, 8 or a 10, or any of them can go out wide as well. So yeah, I would love to see that at some point. That would be superb. Postecoglou pretty much shrugged off the injury after the game. He said about Lucas, he was just a bit sore. I don't think it's anything significant. Again, for him and for Archie, this is all new to them, the way we train. We've got to look after them. But like I said, I don't think it's anything significant. So yeah, look, we know there's been a couple of times when he said an injury isn't significant, and it has ended up being exactly that. On the whole, it's not when he says it, but there have been times, and this is Tottenham. We have seen people that are essentially injured players that get lost between the cracks on a sofa. They just all disappear suddenly and we never see them again. But like I say, I've kind of had it backed up from another area, shall we say, that seems to be the case, that hopefully it just needs a few days rest, which is great. Because we don't really want him off the training pitches for too long, because this is all part of the massive and quick education for him. And kind of the more I see of him, not of him, it's not Hoff, the more I see of Loftus Bergvall, the more inclined I'm actually to believe in what the coaches told me in Sweden at Brommapojkarna and Djurgården. Actually, his adaptation period may not be as long as it would be for certain players coming into a much faster, more physical league. I've written them down here. Brommapojkarna's head of youth and recruiting, Tommy Soderstrom. I wrote this in my piece when I interviewed him and Lucas and various others in Sweden. And if you're not aware, Tommy Soderstrom is, he's worked for years as a scout for Man United. Sir Alex Ferguson personally asked him to join the staff. He's been recently working as Ajax in a similar role. So he knows young players and he knows exactly how good they can be and whether they can work in the Premier League, in the Champions League and everything. And he said about Lucas, he was saying, Anders Limpar is the best player we've produced at Bromma Paikana. The highest level in Europe is very difficult. Dejan Kulusevski, who also came through their system, is a very good player. But Lucas Bergvall is much better than Limpar and Kulusevski were at that age. They are very good, but Lucas in the future can be very, very good. He's a hard-working player, but a very good technician. When we were in the youth tournaments against clubs like Bayern and Barcelona, he was always named player of the competition. Now Tottenham must take care of him. He will play with the seniors straight away and they must give him a chance. You must take care of the boy. He can be a top player in Europe. And when I asked him about how quickly he can adapt, he said he will because he's good up there. Don't worry about that. They must give him a chance. With the ball, he will adapt very quickly. He's also very good with his head. He scores goals with his head. He's quite tall. Both he and Dejan are very good players, but Lucas is better at this age. And that's, like I said, even just in friendlies, especially as, QPR and Hearts tried to kind of create a little bit more of how the tempo might feel. Obviously, it's nowhere going to be near the level, but it's more and more with each passing game. And he adapted his game to it. Like I say, the quicker passing, the not getting caught on the ball. So it's been a really successful pre-season, even thus far. For him, and I just hope that, this is just a minor little kind of rest for him as a way. Exciting to see kind of what comes of him and more of him in pre-season as well. But like I say, see Postecoglou's taken a shine to him, and it was good to see him put into a first half 11 that had these more senior players that he could link up with. He was essentially kind of taking on the Maddison role, and it was really good to kind of see him in that role rather than in a team of young players as we had against Hearts, just to see the difference and how he adapted. He linked up very well with Yves Bissouma. Bissouma was excellent. Bissouma had a terrific game. Again, it's pre-season friendly, but he did play very well. It just feels like we're now waiting to see, can the real Yves Bissouma please stand up? Because his first season under Postecoglou was, you'd probably call it a season of unfulfilled promise, is the best way to put it. First quarter of the season, brilliant. Force of nature, dominated the midfield, swept up the back, had the most tackles, I think, of almost anyone. He was either first or second on the list at that point. And at the other end of the pitch, he would drift past tackles and open up space for other people to kind of run into. It felt like Postecoglou kind of unlocked everything that was so deeply kind of hidden, buried, locked up, whatever you want to call it, under Conte. Because don't forget, Bissouma at Brighton was probably up there among the best midfielders out of the top six in the Premier League. He was that good. He was superb. And he was consistently quite good. Yeah, of course, there were some games where he wasn't as good, but over the course of the season, he was a big part of what Brighton were doing. And then last season, after starting so well in that first quarter or so of the season, then came that red card at Luton at Kenilworth Road. And it just almost felt like he withdrew within himself. He was still kind of had that bravado off the pitch and that kind of confidence, the dancing, the laughter, all this sort of stuff, and the character that he is. But on it, he wasn't the same guy, I didn't feel. And of course, more suspensions came. You had the fifth yellow card at Wolves. You had the sending off against second yellow card, second red card technically at Forest. And if you can combine that with the Africa Cup of Nations absence, had a bout of malaria before that as well. He actually missed 12 matches for Spurs last season, including a knee injury late in the campaign. So he just never really found his rhythm. It was so fragmented. Got that great relationship with Postecoglou, though, which I think was kind of important. If you want an insight what it's like to manage Bissouma, you don't really need to go any further than asking Postecoglou about him. Because you might remember this way back at the start of the season. Postecoglou essentially took him aside, didn't he? Because he was back earlier than everyone else, really, and was working with a lot of the younger players. And Postecoglou said, you could be a real leader here. You could be an inspiration leader to these young players. They all look up to you. You need to do that. And Bissouma was like, okay, I'll do that. And apparently he was brilliant. The rest of that session really kind of showed them and talked to the young players and really pushed them on. They revelled in it. Brilliant session. And then the next day, Bissouma turns up late for the next session. And you're like, what? You didn't listen to anything. And Postecoglou had to kind of take him aside and give him a bit of a lecture and essentially say, That's what I'm talking about. If you're going to be a role model, an example, an illustration to these young players, you've got to be the first in the building, last out kind of guy. You don't want to be the one that rocks up late into training. But it just kind of maybe sums up a certain way that Bissouma can be. He's a bit of a, I don't say a bit of a lad, but, you know, he kind of sometimes marches to his own beat, as it were. And if he could just find that consistency in everything he did, he's got the ability to be one of the best. He really has. He's that good. Because, look, inconsistency has dogged him, really. He'll be 28 next month. And I'm talking mainly at Spurs here. Like I say, even at Brighton, some people you ask about Brighton maybe didn't fully fulfill what he could have been. But he is now at 28, turns 28 next month. He's approaching his prime. This is the time to kind of be becoming the player that he can be. Because when he is fully confident, he's just devastating. All the talent is there. His goal yesterday just summed all of that up. It was exactly what it was, everything that he's got in him. You know, the dribbling, the radar of where other players were, the pass, the move, the shimmy around the keeper, and the nonchalance of just popping it into the net. It was brilliant. But it was his first goal for Tottenham. And that kind of says everything. It really does. He should be scoring more. He should be going on those kind of rampaging runs week in, week out. If it doesn't end in a goal for him, it would be dragging 3-4 players out of the way for the other attackers to suddenly be in acres of space. I've always said that about him. A little bit like Moussa Dembele back in the day. Different kind of player slightly, but with Dembele, I always used to feel like if he could harness what he did around the centre circle and around his own box and did that further up the pitch, it would just been incredible. Probably would have got more kind of kudos from the rest of the world as well, and better regarded that he just was maybe among the players. But yeah, Bissouma can kind of be like that. And he was like full of beans in his interview after the game, the post-match interview. He was trying to sound quite professional, to be fair. You could tell he was really like ecstatic about it all. He said, "It was fantastic. I'm really happy because we worked really hard to prepare. We're still in pre-season. I'm really happy to score my first goal for the club, but I hope more to come. We continue to focus and work because it's still pre-season, and then we'll see." Postecoglou was having none of him being overexcited about anything. He walked by as he was doing the interview. You might have seen it, interrupted it and went, "It's only a friendly game, Biss." It was like, just did a smile and then walked on. And very much Postecoglou's interview, Milesy was kind of essentially saying, "Oh, that would be good for his confidence and stuff like that." And he was not really having it. He just went, "Yeah, but it's only a friendly. I want to see him do it in a game. He's capable of it. He's capable of it." That's our challenge for all our guys. We know the capabilities are there. We've got to produce it when it counts. He was good today. He's been good through pre-season, and we've just got to keep pushing him. He does need to be pushed. He's definitely one of those players that needs to be pushed. And I like the fact that Postecoglou now has this kind of real group of disciplined coaches. You've heard me say about Montgomery and Raimundo. That's what they do. Raimundo was in the army. Montgomery's, I think his dad was in the army. There's that real kind of military background for them both. And it was really interesting, again, going back to that pre-game warm-up and the drills, watching them work. It was Montgomery and Jedinak were working with Bissouma, just individually. Just him, no other players were kind of there. And they were just doing this really interesting warm-up. Again, another one that I haven't seen, where they both had balls in their hands and they were hurling at him from real close kind of quarters. And Bissouma had to suddenly control the ball, pass it off or turn. And they were throwing it. They were throwing it knee height. They were throwing it all kind of awkward heights, kind of to replicate how he might receive the ball in and around his own penalty area, I guess, under pressure. And while they were doing that, sometimes one of the other ones who wasn't throwing the ball would rush at him. And so he then had a player coming at him as well. It was really clever. I hadn't seen it before. And it's one of those where when you actually break it down, it's quite simple. And it is just replicating a match situation, but with a real drill feeling to it, constant. So when you're in the situation in the match, naturally you're like, yeah, I'm going to control this turn. I'm going to control this pass. And it was really interesting to see. Sometimes they would pass it. Sometimes they would throw it at him. And like I say, just to prepare him to being in tight spots, it worked for the goal. He used it. He did it a number of times in the defensive aspect, but also for the goal. It was all about that, taking it round the man, receiving the ball. The way he took the ball into his stride from Kulusevski was exactly that. Took it on, rounded the keeper and put it in the net. So Yeah, it's good. And he seems to be in a good place physically and mentally, which is good. He said after the game, I feel very good. I feel very, very good. Much better. My mind is good. I'm just focused on what I need to do right now because that's just the most important thing. I'm trying to prepare myself very well and be ready to start the season very strongly and finish strongly as well because I think that's important for me. And he was talking about the actual squad they've got right now. He said, we've got a lot of young players and I think I'm one of the older ones now. Yes, you are. Life is changing. So I'm trying to give an example to them too because I think that's really important. It's interesting, going back to the whole example thing. We're working, I don't know, it's suddenly turned German, we're working very hard. We're working very hard. We're very happy to have them, the new players, the old players, everyone trying to be like the coach wants us to be. You can see in the 2 games how we're playing, following our process, and we're very happy, but we need to continue to do more. He does, and he needs to do more. He knows himself he's got to carry it across the whole season. Spurs, you would imagine, bring in another midfielder in the coming weeks. Bissouma is not guaranteed a starting spot by any stretch of the imagination. He's got to work for it, and there will be more competition for him as well. Hopefully he brings that consistency because, he is. He's got it all there. It's all there in the locker for him. And as I say, he can be a real. When he plays well, Spurs play well. I always feel that, and could be a big player. Hopefully again this season. We need that from him. So as for the rest of the game, there was aspects we could see where Spurs and Postecoglou, there's more that needs to be done. Obviously, new faces we need coming in certain positions as well, but also plenty of positives too. Of course, look, he needs the centre backs back. We know that. But I still think he would have been impressed with the way Gray and Skip went about it. Skippy back there too. Gray was just very calm and collected again. Showed his, terrific ability he's got on the ball. This was more of a challenge for them than Hearts. QPR, like I said, they had big lad Michael Frey up front who was trying to kind of give them a load of problems and battling for everything. And there was one moment where Gray absolutely shoved him. They were running for something. I think it was Frey down the touchline, and he just pushed him straight into the linesman, as if to say, "I'm not going to give you any quarter. You are going to have to work for this." And I think because Skippy, unless I'm mistaken, is a bit shorter than Gray, Frey would try and target him whenever the ball was in the air. He would try and go over there, and I thought Skippy did really well. I would say that maybe more eye-catching than Archie Gray, just because of the amount of battling he had to do, and he came out the other side. No, they were good. They both did absolutely fine. Kulusevski, I thought, looked really sharp. He had to come on for Bergvall on 26 minutes and then went off kind of midway through the second half, so he kind of got his 45 minutes as well. He looks good. I mean, he grabbed another assist, didn't he, for Bissouma, set up Werner and Moore for big chances, either side of half-time as well. He just looks kind of very comfortable in that midfield trio. And I do wonder, with him not really being the prototype Postecoglou winger or archetype, do we see him more in a midfield role, a deeper role? Potentially, we could. We could indeed. As for the wingers, differing impacts in various minutes. I felt Brennan Johnson was quite wasteful in the final third early in the game, but then did have two especially decent runs down the flank. One, beat his man, put the ball low across to Sonny, who was denied by the keeper. And there was another one where he kind of headed the ball down, ran on, clipped it low into the 6-yard box, and Sonny just couldn't quite get enough on it. He kind of skewed it across the face of goal rather than inside the corner. And on the other flank, Timo Werner, probably even less of an impact. And, critics are obviously going to point to these kind of moments, but Kulusevski curled this lovely pass into his path, and he, rather than just racing on and shooting, he slightly stuttered and slowed his step towards the end. Players kind of put more pressure on him, and his shot was saved by the keeper. It's the kind of thing that he needs to be sliding into the corner, really. Who else we got? Second half, Jed Spence again, very positive, really positive. Second 45 minutes for him. I mean, he gave the ball away a few times. I'm not saying it was perfect, But it was definitely, it's all steps in the right direction for him. And I felt like he gave QPR a lot of problems. There was one moment, an absolutely filthy nutmeg on a player, kind of almost in the corner near the touchline in the QPR box, or actually outside, more the corner flag, which was, superb. And he also raced back and made a really good block. I think it was on Ray and Coley. Really good kind of last-ditch challenge. He and Emerson both went in for it. And he has the pace. He has the pace in the transitions, which is quite a big thing for Postecoglou, really, if he were to use him. I'm still not entirely certain that's going to be the case, but we'll see. Certainly, from what I understand, he's been working hard behind the scenes. That's the start. That's the first step. And I think that combined with the lack of defenders right now, it looks he's currently, I think, expected to head off on the tour, barring any late changes of circumstances, whether some club comes in for him or they maybe decide that he isn't putting in the full effort anyway. I don't know. But at the moment, it looks like he's going to head off on the tour. And it kind of makes sense if that is the case, because, like I say, you can play right back, left back. That allows Emerson and Davies to then step into the centre. It gives you more options in the centre rather than having to play midfielders there. So it does make sense. And again, it's all putting him in the shop window if he's not going to stay. I think I said this in the last video, would I love him to stay? Of course I would. It'd be fantastic. You've spent that amount of money on him. It would seem daft to kind of not at least try the option. But I just still feel the way Postecoglou spoke about him the other day didn't scream to me he's going to be part of my long-term plans. But like I say, what I've heard that he's working hard. Yes, he's got Pedro Porro there. He's got Archie Gray now, can play there as well. Obviously, Archie Gray, part of the reason why he wasn't playing at right back for Leeds. There were other issues as well, but it was part of it. But look, full credit to Jed Spence for at least putting himself back in the conversation where he was not at all. He did well. I thought James Maddison looked sharp. Thought he did well. Took on a bit of a leadership role in the way he was the captain for the second half with Sonny off. Started the move that led to the second goal. Yeah, he did. He did do well. That second goal, though, it was all about Mikey Moore. It really was. I just still can't believe he's 16. It's just mad. We were discussing this, kind of watching him from the press box, that you look at someone like Will Lancashire, who is a big lad, and he looks probably older than a 19-year-old. Mikey Moore, I still don't think it's not so much his height, because he's still got a bit to grow yet. It's more the way he carries himself, his gait. It's not a 16-year-old. It is a more mature player. The way he takes the ball into his stride and collects it, and the way he uses it, his whole body shape. It is a far more experienced player's kind of whole body shape. And he did well. He did well. I mean, you look at it now. We've had the Cambridge game, the Hearts game, and QPR. Mikey Moore's got 2 goals and an assist across those 3 games. He's contributed goal involvement in each of those 3 games. He's 16 years old. Doesn't turn 17 until next month. It is kind of mad, really. And I, as I've said, I'm repeating myself, but he'll play a lot of minutes next season. He will. I'm hoping that Spurs are pretty much doing everything to show him that, you sign that deal next month. You'll play football. He's getting really heavily involved. The fans are loving him. Hopefully, he can see that this is where it's at. This is where he needs to be. It was good for Dane Scarlett to get the goal from Mikey Moore's lovely outside of the foot pass. He needed that. He's seen Will Lancashire score a goal, and I think someone said in the comments, they were quite right, that Scarlett has scored a pre-season goal before. But this was good for him. You could see a little bit of relief on his face as well. He came on, he replaced Tyrese Hall. Tyrese Hall actually had a tough day. He was probably the one player that maybe had the toughest day. And he's so young. He's only 18. It's got to be said, Just had a bit of an off day. He came on midway through the half. I think he came on for Kulusevski, if memory serves me right. And he was only really on for 19 minutes and he was taken off again. Misplaced a couple of passes. The sub being subbed. Sometimes young players, it can kind of be an important thing, a moment like that. It's just absorbing it, learning from it, moving on. He's a young player with a lot of talent and ability. He's got this very kind of laid-back look to the way he plays, which maybe gives a slightly misleading kind of view on the amount of ground he covers. And yeah, it's just about taking the lessons, be better next time. That's all it is, really. And that's not just a young player thing. The senior players are exactly like that too. Who else do we have? Jamie Donnelly. Jamie Donnelly started the game absolutely on fire. Was incredible at the start of the game. He was everywhere, covering so much ground. Then he had a little spell in the middle of the first half where he played a couple of maybe 2-3 passes that didn't come off, and he was giving it to the opposition. He had one that led to quite a dangerous break that Pedro Porro kind of mopped up for him and bailed him out of. Overall, you just have to remind yourself, he is a 19-year-old attacking midfielder trying to play in left-back role that he just has never played really before. But he does deliver a lot of the inverted nature of it that Postecoglou wants. He's very high up the pitch at times. I felt like he was quite withdrawn and safe almost in the first, in the Hearts game, whereas in this one he was probably even more off the leash. And look, he'll point to the fact that it was a clean sheet. Yeah, he's done a good job in filling in, and that's kind of why you would assume he's heading off on the tour, because he's going to give you that kind of versatility, and you can play him anywhere. He's going to do you a job. Who else we got? Brandon Austin made a terrific flying save to deny Colley, pushing his effort onto the crossbar. And Luca Gunter came on for the whole second half. We didn't see Alfie Whiteman, but Luca Gunter came on, made a brilliant full-length tip onto the post. I think it was Lyndon Dykes' header, pushed onto the post. It was very, very good. George Abbott did well, very solid. Came on at left back for Donnelly for the second half. Keep an eye on him. I think he's going to be a very useful player for Spurs in the under-21s this year. Alejo Valise came on, tried to make things happen. Didn't so much, but he tried. Probably the standout, or one of the standout players for me in that second half, was Alfie Devine. I thought Alfie was brilliant. Used the ball really well, very neat and tidy. Lots of kind of clever passing. I think he's just trying to remind Postecoglou and everyone, hey, I was the wonder kid last summer. Don't you remember? I was the guy that everyone was saying he needs to play. I was the Mikey Moore, the Bergvall, the Gray kind of thing. And I thought he did really, really well. Really, really well. Will Lancashire came on again got the nod to start the second half, which is a big old pat on the back for him. Which kind of, again, shows you how well he's doing in training. Obviously, he wasn't able to score as he was at Hearts. He did have a decent chance. His movement, again, very good. Got on to Madison ball, if I remember correctly. Went wide, kind of took it around the keeper, but it was just so wide that he kind of hit it into the side netting. But he did all right. He did absolutely fine before. Exactly the same as the last game. That kind of halfway through the second half switch for Valise again. He did fine. He did fine. He's got nothing to kind of be too worried about. And it'll be interesting to see now whether Postecoglou takes him on at all, because I think he's earned it. I think he would be there on merit. Because, I mean, there's the aspect of, do you take 3 young strikers, but then you maybe don't have Richarlison, or if he does go, Richarlison maybe won't be in a position to play for a while. We'll see. I mean, they head off tomorrow, Monday, as I do. Tokyo for 5 days or so, and then off to South Korea. Bissouma was asked about it. He said, we'll be working. We're going there for work. We've got 2 weeks there and we'll be preparing well, because after we come back, we've only got a few days and we start in the Premier League. We know that's hard, and we've got to be ready for all of the competitions we've got, because we've got the Europa League as well. We have to be focused on every game. Now we see who's going to make the squad, really. Who doesn't, we'll say plenty about whether they're going to be pushed towards the door or whether they just are injured, which we'll find out about. Obviously, Hojbjerg will be heading off now, so he's not going to be involved. Dragashin hopefully should be back. Vicario seems to be making noises on social media as if he's going to be part, or certainly coming back soon. Mickey van der Ven, it'll be interesting to see whether his kind of lack of game time means he comes back that little bit earlier, or whether he just needs the rest. Because, it's not just about playing matches. He'll be been training and working hard for the Netherlands at the Euros as well. Fascinating to see kind of which of those come back. You'd imagine, the likes of Lo Celso and Romero and all that are going to be out there a fair while longer, having their rest, and Bentancur the same. which might be best for him, you'd imagine, right now, just to kind of take some little time away from it all. Sergio Reguilón and Brian Hill, obviously, I'm going to have to make decisions on. Haven't been involved thus far. Whether that is because there's any injuries as well, I don't know. But you would imagine they're two players that's future lies elsewhere. Richarlison and Fraser Forster, I think they're going to have to see where they are fitness-wise and whether they can be included because they'll play some part, some date within the tour. Poor Richarlison did a photo of himself in an empty canteen at Hotspur Way on Saturday, which was really quite sad. But I guess that's part of the whole getting yourself fit and ready. Is sometimes it can be a bit lonely when everyone else is playing football. Continues to be linked with the Saudi Pro League, despite being very public in his denials of going there at all thus far. As I said before, I still think Spurs have little hesitation in taking. If they were able to get their money back for a £60 million player who just has performed well when he's been called upon, but it's being available to be called upon, and he hasn't been, and to be injured in this pre-season as well, which is going to set him back as well. You can just imagine whenever someone's not had a pre-season, you always say at some point in the season, "Oh, don't forget you didn't have a pre-season," or the manager will say that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Richarlison. There's been one new addition this month. Johan Lange has added to his staff with a new scout in Max Legath, who was formerly head of scouting at FC Basel, and also before that spent 6 years at Bayern Munich, where he rose to the level of chief scout of the younger players academy, essentially, for the under-9s to under-23s. But at Spurs, he will focus on signings for the first team. So it's just adding to this new look scouting department that very much is data-based, using the analytics, and of course their eyes as well, and just finding the players that are perfect for Postecoglou's system, because that's the key. So many Spurs signings have not worked in the past because they haven't signed the proper players for the manager. They've gone for players that were good deals maybe at times and stuff like that, or ones that they felt for the future would be a good addition, whereas now it's about getting the right player to fit the system. And because Postecoglou's kind of ethos and system is also what links in and matches Spurs' long-term kind of beliefs, it all works together quite nicely. So yeah, another first team scout that's come in there in Max Legath. Yes, I know it's not a player. I've got to imagine people, can he play right back? Can he play in central midfield? Can he play up front? Up front, probably the most pressing. So yeah, I mean, look, Spurs, of course, they need to add to Postecoglou's ranks, his squad. We know they do. It would be good to get it done sooner rather than later to get them in for as much pre-season work as possible. But, as I said in the past, Lange's work is far quieter way than Paratici's. Paratici was having some potential issues in Italy again this week. Looks like the Rome prosecutor's office have pushed for him and others to be indicted for a trial. I don't know whether that's been kind of given yet. We'll see, but that certainly was the last thing I saw of it. So yeah, Paratici, potential more problems for him back home. Obviously, still in the midst of his ban, albeit a slightly walked back ban that allows him to consult here and there when required. But yeah, Lange just works in a very quiet way, and that means far less rumours, far easier to know which rumours are utter rubbish, but also very frustrating for the other side because it kind of feels like they're doing nothing when of course they are, just it's not out there in the public domain. But like I said, it's kind of feel like Hojbjerg maybe is the one that starts the little kind of the ball rolling, as it were. But yeah, so pretty much hard work needs to continue on and off the pitch, as it will in the days ahead. Like I said, I'm heading off. I need to really head off now because it's my last night at home for a while, and I definitely should be spending it with my wife rather than speaking to you. No offence, none intended anyway. I'll try to do a video or two out on tour when I get a few spare moments, because like I say, I do these around work. So I will, if I get any kind of partial days off and things like that. There's not much time off on a tour, but I can kind of take little bits and pieces of time, probably when everyone is asleep over here, and at the end of my daytime, start of my daytimes. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing what Japan's like because I've never been there. It's been on my list of countries I want to go to. And of course, really looking forward to going back to South Korea, which is one of definitely up there among the coolest places I've been to. It's brilliant. I've seen my media schedule for the days ahead. It is very busy. There's lots of interviews. There's only a couple of us going out there, which is cool. I mean, it's nice having a group of people, but of course, maybe sometimes the interviews can be a little bit more intimate. You can get more out of them if there's only a couple of you doing them. There's interviews galore, 6 press conferences, if you could, in pre and post match ones. Hopeful that I'll get to sit down with Postecoglou as we did last summer as well, so that you get loads out of him then as well. So I'm going to have to think up a lot of questions. I really am. So, hey, if you want to offer up any questions, please whack them in the comments underneath because, like I say, 6 press conferences over these 2 weeks and a sit down. There's going to be a lot of stuff to ask him, and the more questions I've got, the more answers I and you can all get to various things you're wondering about. So yeah, feel free. I'll definitely try and look over the comments and take down as many as I can. Obviously, I'm not going to do it like the fans would like to know this. I don't think managers ever like that. But I will still, essentially, I'm guessing I'm saying I'll steal them and make it sound like I thought of them. But hey, if you want the question answered, you're going to get your answer one way or the other. But just gives me more things to try and get more interesting stuff out of him. But I've got to head off now. I've got to go and spend some time with my wife before I kind of head off across the world. And that's where I will catch you next time, I would have thought, over there. So hopefully more to talk about. As I said, I'm sure there'll be something in terms of transfer movement in the next day or two. Knowing my luck, it'll either happen as this video's uploading or while I'm in the air. I feel like it was coming back from a pre-season tour a few years, was it 3-4 years ago, while on the long-haul flight back. Loads of stuff happened. I can't remember what it was now, but loads of stuff happened. And I think there was someone weird people that try and impersonate you on Twitter as well, was putting out stuff that I hadn't said. I had to land and go, yeah, that's not me. Just strange world, but there you go. Not great. But I'd rather it happens when I've landed. That'd be nice. That allows me more time to crack on and cover it and get everything. And under 21s won 2-0 against St Albans on Saturday as well. Looks like the under 18. Oh no, that's way back. Sorry, that's an old one. The under 18s will have played more games since then as well. But there you go. Right, time to head off. Time to head off and prepare. I haven't even packed my suitcase yet. I'm going tomorrow, which is very poor from me. So yes, hopefully more stuff happens, but hopefully there was enough there we can have a little chat about. And I shall catch you from the other side of the world. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.